Baldur's Gate 3, which I played a little bit of today because of this news. Baldur's Gate 3 is going to get a TV show, and that TV show is going to be made by Craig, and I don't know if I'm saying it right, Mazin, who is the guy in charge of the Last of Us show. He also made Chernobyl. He's developing a Baldur's Gate TV series for HBO that continues the story immediately after the events of Baldur's Gate 3, which is why I'm replaying it, because I never got to the end of that game, and I definitely want to. I'm like in the middle of chapter 2, or act 2, or whatever they call it. I can't remember. Featuring both existing and new characters dealing with the game's ramifications. Unlike The Last of Us, which retold the game's story, the series is going to be an ongoing continuation with creative freedom, since no new game is in development. Larian had moved it, like they got tired of Wizards of the Coast shenanigans and decided we're just going to make our Divinity instead. And then Mazin plans to invite voice actors from the game to participate in the show. So, Carrie, you had a roller coaster of emotions when I dropped this in our Discord. You were like, yes, and then you were like, no. Talk about that.
Yeah, so initially, like, everything was like coming up Millhouse, and I was like, oh yeah, the guy who made Chernobyl, I love Chernobyl. Oh yeah, that guy, he's going to do a great job. And I'm hearing all the things, like it's after Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm a big fan of, making sure canon is there and all the other stuff. So everything is like really like lining up for me. And then I'm like on Twitter to like see other people talking about it. And then like one of the guys that like works with Larian, he's like, I'm going to crash out on Maine right now. And I thought he was doing that out of happiness at first. And then it turns out, no, actually, he's not, because they're like not even involved. So at the moment, no one from Larian, as far as I'm aware, has any involvement with this TV series at all. And that bothers me to a great degree. Like, I don't know how you can have like everyone celebrating why Baldur's Gate 3 is so great because of this team, and then just be like, here you go, someone like. I have full trust in the director of like, executing very well, but I do firmly believe that the people that were involved should have a strong presence in guiding as well. And them not there takes me back a little, and I get worried. Like, are we going to have this, like, is this going to be this thing where, like when Witcher was coming out, they're like, oh, we're totally going to follow the books and we're totally going to do everything else. And then they just like rug pull you midway through, and they're like, never mind, we're actually going to do our own thing. We're going to take our own spin on this. And that's what it takes place afterwards. So technically any way they go could be canon, but I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. And I am in this whirlwind of emotions right now that I just have whiplash.
Are you worried about canon in this case? I mean, like, is canon for Baldur's Gate determined by Larian?
No. So no, especially that it takes place after Baldur's Gate 3. But I do feel that the main people that did it have ideas that maybe aren't going to be the central focus. Maybe they're not there, but they would be like, actually, this part right here, what we should do is we can call back to this. That may not be present in the showrunner's mind because they don't have that, they can't intuit that, right? So I feel like they should be involved, whether or not that mean, like, I'm not saying that they should have, like, they shouldn't be directing it, but I do firmly believe that they should have involvement.
I think that when you look at just like the circumstances around the idea of like how the game got made, like Larian had to run pretty much everything through Wizards. Like they're the ones that own the IP. They're the ones that have this property and they control it. So everything that Larian probably did, not to take anything away from Larian because they made an amazing game. But everything that they did, they probably had to get permission from Wizard to do this, to write characters a certain way. And, like, yes, they wrote that stuff, but now all of that stuff is probably sitting at Wizards. And basically, because Wizards is so controlling, my read on the situation is because Wizards is so controlling, Larian was like, We don't want to do a Baldur's Gate 4. We want to do our own thing. And they're not interested in working with Wizard anymore. And that's why they're not involved in it. At least that's how I think it probably is.
So, one of the things that I definitely saw in the later stages of my military career, we transfer into new jobs every 3 years. And so you're often picking up projects that someone else already started, right? And you're just kind of continuing and pushing things forward. And I kind of liken this whole thing to that as well. And one of the things I always did was I would call up the guys who were running their project before me, right? And I just kind of get their take, what were their pain points, what was going on with all that stuff, regardless of what I did with any of it. But it was just making me more informed. And I kind of was thinking that as Carrie was talking. It's like, maybe they should have some unofficial chats with Larian, like Craig Mazin should, and just kind of like, hey, like, where do you see this going? That kind of thing, just a way of honoring the work that they've already done kind of thing. But I don't know if contracts are preventing them from that. Maybe it's really ugly between them and Wizards like, no, don't talk to them, talk to us kind of thing. Who knows? I will point out, though, that Craig Mazin is a longtime writer as well. Before he was a showrunner, he was writing stuff. And so he wrote, he was a writer on like some of the Scary Movie sequels, not the original, but the sequels. And then also that 2 Hangover sequels, he was the writer on those too. So maybe not like the best pedigree, in terms of those writing credentials, but he's been a writer for a long time. And I think that's really important when running a show like this. And so I've got a lot of faith that it's probably going to be pretty darn good, especially when you think of something like Chernobyl. But yeah, I do hope that at some point they have a conversation with Larian about that, if they're allowed to, and just kind of, find a happy consensus to honor the work that they've already done while moving on to a new project.
I also think that, they said that he's going to reach out to the voice actors and, try and get them involved in some way. That doesn't mean that they're going to be a big part. Like, they could just be like, oh, by the way, what's the lady, the cleric lady that's hiding everything from you? I can't remember her name in the game. Shadow something. Shadowheart.
Right.
Shadowheart. Okay. Like, maybe Shadowheart is like in a bar or in a tavern someplace, like in the background. And like she walks by and says something, or she walks up and she's like hires the people who are in the actual stars of the show. Hey, I need you to do this for me. And everybody who watched the show or who played the game is like, oh, that's Shadowheart. Holy cow, that's so cool. And that's her whole part. Like, they can tell a story because it takes place after, and they're not recreating what happened, which they can't recreate what happened because everybody has different paths through that game. Because it takes place after, they're not beholden to that same thing. They could have their own story, and like Rich said, that becomes the canon because Wizards of the Coast controls the IP.
Yeah. What's funny is when you're telling me about the thing, honestly, the only thing that was coming in my head was the orc girl, who I always, like, in my head, I'm like, Gamora. And, like, her name's not Gamora, but, like, every time I saw her with, like, the teeth coming out, I'm like, you're just, it's like, but yeah, so my brain was scrambling for her name. I don't want to go too far on this, and I don't want to repeat myself. I am very confident in the work of the director. I feel like all the work that he's done has always felt like there was, like, what it was, no matter what it was, I felt like the gravity of what they were doing was respected, and I feel like that I can trust in from his previous work, and that is what really does excite me a lot. I really wish that there was a way that this could be done in a way that is amicable for all parties involved. It is what it is.
You mentioned Larian, so someone at Larian was crashing out.
It's Cromwell.
It was Cromwell.
On Twitter,
okay.
it's Cromwell. Yeah.
So like, he shouldn't be, right? Like, isn't this like pretty like? It makes me optimistic, right? That like you will probably see like a Divinity series at some point, right? Like, we have Witcher, we have Baldur's Gate,
right?
Like, this is kind of in the zeitgeist right now, and I can see that if Larian lands the next Divinity, the one that we saw the trailer for, like, yeah, we might be able to see a series.
They will. They'll land it.
What is Divinity based on? I don't actually know.
I don't know that it's based on anything. Like it's their own. I think it's their own thing.
It's their own thing.
I
Like
think there's
I know
like
that,
5 games. I only played 2 of them.
No, what I mean is like so like Baldur's Gate is Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like it's in the Dungeons and Dragons rule set.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Are you asking if it's based on a tabletop RPG?
Yeah, like they have like offshoots, right? There's Pathfinder, and then there's another one from the Critical Role group. They made their own.
I think it's its own thing, but I'm not 100% sure. Like I never looked into it.
Yeah, so there's a part of me that like I know that Divinity. I don't know that Divinity has the same textural feeling that Baldur's Gate 3 does. Baldur's Gate has. That I almost feel like they should just make a whole new thing that they could start fresh on instead of trying to, go off for that Divinity series, even though that is a fine series to go off of. I just feel like they really should have started somewhere new. This is just me just spitballing. I'm not saying anything.
I'm also
one way
thinking
or the
about
other.
it, like back to Witcher, right? Like Witcher 1 and 2. Witcher 1, certainly no one was really paying attention. Witcher 2, you started to see like those embers start to light up, but Witcher 3
Right.
was the one, right? So maybe they have a Witcher 3 in them when it comes to Divinity.
Honestly,
Maybe.
I don't think that they don't need it because they needed it with Baldur's Gate. Because Baldur's Gate
Right.
was that IP that they were like, oh, it's a new Baldur's Gate game. I'm going to check that out. And yes, they made really good games before, but this is the game that put them on the map. It made Larian is now like one of the best studios ever. They make such good games. So now it's not that it needs to be this next IP. It's the next Larian game. You know what I mean? And I think that's
Right.
because Baldur's Gate lifted them up with that name, and then they delivered on it and then some by making just a bonkers good game.
I do to some degree think that the rule set that they use is critical. Not to have a pun in there, but I do think it's important to have a good rule set in there, because a lot of the things that they had, I loved every part of it, not just like rolling for whatever success rate you have or not, but I forget who told me this, but I was, when I was flying over to Taipei, it might have been Baldy Rudy. I was talking about how I was flying over to Taipei and playing Baldur's Gate 3, and my party just got wiped by goblins. He was like, I don't, the game's old, so I don't, maybe other people already know about this. He's like, oh, I just put muddle over my face and told the goblins that I was a goblin. And I was like, I need to replay now. Like, I need to redo how I'm doing. So, like, that level of, like, how many options you have to get through is obviously one of the reasons why Baldur's Gate 3 is so beloved. But I had just gotten into a bad situation with one of my stupid side characters just starting something. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you guys think. Are you going to watch it? Are you excited for it? I personally am super hyped for it. The creative minds behind it and the fact that it's Baldur's Gate. If I'm telling you right now, if we don't see a giant bald guy screaming at a space hamster, I'm going to be pissed. Like, I need to see that at some point in this game. That's got to be there, or in this show.